Welcome back to Scouting Movies. We're going to take some deep dives into movies that make us laugh, cry, and in the case of this movie, in some ways, rethink our entire lives. Today, we're talking about a John Hughes movie. Uh, and you know John Hughes movies. Um, some of them he's directed, some of them he's produced, some of them he's written, and some of them he's done a combination of the three. You've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You've seen The Breakfast Club. You've seen Home Alone. You've seen Uncle Buck. You've seen a lot of these different uh, awesome comedy movies from the 80s and 90s. Today we're talking about a film that maybe didn't get quite as much attention as some of those other ones that I named. It's called She's Having a Baby. And it's every bit as heartfelt and sharp as Hughes' best work. It's a movie that takes a surprisingly honest, funny, and emotional look at marriage, of growing up, facing the realities of adulthood. So, as far as a synopsis of She's Having a Baby, um, sorry, excuse me. Um, it's about the newlyweds, Jake and Kristy Briggs, and as they navigate the first part of their life together with jobs and with college degrees and impending parenthood, including the decision whether or not to have a child. And it's told through Jake's humorous and heartfelt perspective, through an internal monologue. It explores how he deals with societal expectations, with personal ambitions, with the pressures of settling down. And as he embarks on a career in marketing, he wrestles with the fear of losing his independence, while Christy is eager to start a family. And their attempts at pregnancy face unexpected challenges. He's forced to confront his own immaturity, his own insecurities. Meanwhile, temptation and unsolicited advice from his free-spirited best friend kind of complicates his search for fulfillment. Um, and when Christie's pregnancy and life are put at risk during childbirth, Jake finally realizes what truly matters. Um, and that's kind of the synopsis. I won't tell you what happens there at the end. You're gonna have to go watch it yourself. Uh, but and I do urge you all to watch this movie for a few different reasons that I'll get into right now. First of all, when you think of John Hughes, you think of high school hallways and boom boxes playing to people uh, in windows and um, so many other absolutely famous John Hughes scenes, like a car in Ferris Bueller, um, or John Candy's presence in Uncle Buck, and all of these other types of things. But in this one, he's stepping into adulthood. He's showing us what happens after the coming of age story ends. And honestly, he nails it here, and it's something that we can all feel. We can, because it's a normal everyday occurrence. We're talking about growing up. We're talking about getting a job, leaving college, having the questions of if we're going to add a child to this marriage, to this relationship, what that means for us, what that means for our previous life of fun and games and singlehood, and going out and leaving the house whenever you want. And so it follows Jake Briggs, who's played by Kevin Bacon, as he goes through this biggest transition of his life, as he goes through this new marriage, career pressures, eventually fatherhood. Here's what makes Jake such a great character. He's flawed. He's sometimes frustratingly so. He's a real character. Sometimes he's selfish. Sometimes he's frustrating. Sometimes he's just plain lost and just plain wrong about how he uh, talks to his wife or how he goes through his whole life. He's that guy who isn't quite sure that he wants to grow up yet. Even though life isn't exactly going to wait for him to make up his mind. Uh, and all of us have been there. I don't care who you are. Uh, we all have that decision that, oh, do I really want to go to work today? Adulting is hard. And that's exactly the kind of stage of life that he's in. And we've all been there. And one of the coolest things that the movie does is kind of put us into Jake's head through an internal monologue that takes place throughout the course of the entire film. He's constantly battling between his daydreams and the reality that he's living in. It's hilarious, it's relatable, and it makes Jake's journey just feel that much more personal. There's Kristy, played by Elizabeth McGovern, and John Hughes could have easily fallen into a cliche here of the nagging wife versus the free spirited husband kind of storyline that we've seen way too many times. But Hughes is a much better writer than that. He's a much better filmmaker than that. Kristy isn't a one dimensional character who's just going to roll her eyes at Jake as he goes through his antics. No, in fact, she's the heart of this film. She's patient. Yes, she's loving. She's also flawed, but she gets her own frustrations. She's building this life with Jake, and she needs him to be all in on her, all in on their family. Their relationship feels real because we've all been there. It's like any real marriage. It's not just about the good moments. It's about the hard ones too. The arguments, the fights, the yelling at each other sometimes, the sleeping on the couch because neither you nor your partner want to be in the same bed at that same time. It's a real marriage because there's also really good moments in that, and there's good ones to look back on. The best thing about this movie is how seamlessly it blends comedy with drama. John Hughes always knew how to find humor in real life, and She's Having a Baby is full of those little moments where that are both kind of funny and existential all at the same time. Like the synchronized lawn mowing sequence, which is like it's taken straight out of a musical from the 1990s. Uh, it turns into a musical number where all of the fathers and husbands are all out mowing their lawn at the same time and start this dance number with their lawnmowers as props. You got to see it if you don't know what I'm talking about. It perfectly captures Jake's anxiety as he watches these other fathers so lost in their home life duties, while he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. Is he just going to be this guy in a suit and tie for the next 50 years, mowing his way toward middle age mediocrity, or is he going to try to be something else? And which is the right choice for him to do? There's a lot of fantasy sequences in the film. I'm not talking about high fantasy, epic fantasy kind of things. I'm talking about Jake keeps seeing this mysterious woman throughout the entirety of the film that's in his mind. It's a symbol of all of the little what ifs in his life. The idea that does he really want to be single, or does he want to have this relationship with this incredibly gorgeous woman that he's imagining? There's also this best friend of his played by Alec Baldwin. It's a guy who refuses to grow up. In a way, he represents the path that Jake thinks he wants to take because it seems so easy. It seems so free spirited, but in reality, it's a cautionary tale of what can happen because he's rudderless in his life. We go through this whole movie and then we get to the ending. If you've seen this movie, you know the ending that I'm talking about. Let me tell you, if you go into She's Having a Baby thinking it's just this lighthearted romantic comedy, this final act wrecks you, completely wrecks you. Everything up to this point has been about Jake avoiding responsibility, about dodging commitment, about trying to hold on to his old habits and his old ways of life, his old dreams. But then Kristy's pregnancy takes a terrifying turn. Um, I'm not going to tell you what happens. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of details. Suddenly, everything becomes extremely real to Jake. I've been in a situation like that. Our daughter was born through emergency C-section, and everything just speeds up and slows down at the exact same time. And that's how you feel when you're watching this. It's everything just becomes real. You lose all semblance of dreams, all semblance of pretending things that are out there. Everything is about that moment. Um, we get the montage in there, set to Kate Bush's song "This Woman's Work," which, by the way, is one of the most emotionally devastating songs that you're ever going to hear in a film. Jake flashes back through his entire relationship with Kristy, every moment that he thinks about, every good moment, every bad moment, every silly moment, heartbreaking moment that he spent with Kristy. It all hits him at once. In that moment, he gets it. He finally understands it. He realizes what he has, what he wants to be. He wants to be a husband. He wants to be a father. He doesn't want to lose what is potentially being lost in the other room right there. I dare you to watch that scene without tearing up. It's a masterstroke of brilliance from John Hughes, stepping into real drama rather than just comedy. She's Having a Baby is not the first film that people will think of when you hear the name John Hughes. It should be. It should be one of the movies you think of when you hear John Hughes because it's one of the most mature, heartfelt, deeply personal films that John Hughes has ever made. It captures something so universal, the fear of growing up, the weight of commitment, the realization that life isn't about chasing some perfect dream, but it's learning to appreciate the beautiful, messy reality that you do have. Kevin Bacon delivers one of his best performances, balancing humor and vulnerability effortlessly. Elizabeth McGovern is fantastic, bringing warmth and depth to a role that could have easily been underwritten or underperformed. And John Hughes proves once again that he's not just a master of teenage stories, he understood life in all of its confusing, terrifying, wonderful chaos. So, if you've never seen She's Having a Baby, or it's been a while since you've seen it, give it another watch. It's funny, it's heartfelt. By the time the credits roll, you might find yourself appreciating your own life just a little bit more. So, as far as a rating for She's Having a Baby, as you can tell by my passion for this film, it's going to be a high rating. Um, I mean, it's not a perfect film by any means. There's a couple of sequences, a couple of characters that maybe don't land all the way through, but the entire message is really good. So I'm giving it a straight up A. Uh, I really believe it's one of John Hughes' best films. It's one of the best films I've reviewed so far, and it got lost in awards voting. It got lost in people going to the theaters. So people probably haven't heard about it as much. What do you think, though? Does it deserve more love? Do you think it's one of John Hughes's more underrated gems? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out other reviews on Scotty Movies. Thanks, everyone.